All right, so good afternoon, or no, we're still in the morning. Good morning, everybody. Glad to be here with you. My camera is currently taller than I expected, or lower. Fix this real quick. There we go. Awesome. So my name's Brian Wright. I'm the principal of Town Planning and Urban Design Collaborative, and appreciate you all being here with us. This is the technical meeting that's not necessarily so technical, but topical, let's call it that. And the topic of the hour is talking about economic development. And so let's see, how many people do we have on? We have a good number. I'm going to share my screen real quick and run through a couple of things to get everybody thinking, and then we'll jump right in and have a discussion. 1 second. Share my screen. Can you see my screen? Yes, all right. Thank you so much. So, as I said, I'm Brian, and I am leading the team from Town Planning Urban Design Collaborative, and we have our partner, City Explained, also working on the comprehensive plan to help you all figure out the plan for your future. What do you want to see in your city? And our job is to help you get that out and express it, and help get it written down and documented so the plan can be written. So a lot of our process is really geared around listening to the community, because we aren't from here, from Spartanburg. I'm actually just outside of Nashville, and so I don't know Spartanburg in the way that you do, and we never can. So want to have you guys teach us and guide us, and we'll help do our best to really make sure that this plan, reflects what it is that you want to do, not what we've done or seen elsewhere. Maybe you go and think about a little bit topics that might pop up. We don't have to stay on these bullet points, but we can go where the discussion takes us. But maybe thinking about doing business in Spartanburg. We've been hearing people have a desire to increase well-paying jobs. Shopping and is obviously tricky these days, even before COVID, but now with COVID here, what does that mean, especially in places like your downtown? People didn't hear about job training as important, and entrepreneurship, as well as growing the office and retail and industrial businesses in the city, and then thinking about lifestyle amenities for current and potential employers. When people are looking at setting up a business in a city, it's not just today like it once was, where is the natural resource that I need? It's as much about the human resources. And what people have realized is that their employees, or the people that they want to hire for their business, care more about the place that they live than the job that they have in a lot of cases. And so making sure that the city has all of the things that a potential person might want, that they're looking to hire, might want. And so that becomes important as well. So we'll talk about some of these things. But first, before we do that, maybe we can jump in, and everybody can do a quick introduction. Just tell us your name and what made you decide to jump on this Zoom this morning. First, maybe I will, I'm trying to get this where I can see everybody here. There we go. I also didn't mention my team. I've got Becky Timmons there. Becky is project manager for us. Trip Muldrow is our economist from Arnett Muldrow, and have Meg Nealon is on here. She's urban designer, and Chansey Lundy is our planner focused on equity. Because the whole plan, the cornerstone is the foundation of this plan is all about equity. And so as we look at jobs and economic development, obviously that has an impact you know, on the more business, the more jobs we have in the city, the better off people are. So I want to make sure that we're tying equity into all that we're doing here. And then I have Jessica Beekler as well. Jessica is a planner on our team. So I'll go around the rest of my screen. So I've got Chris Story.
Good morning, everyone. I'm the city manager in Spartanburg. Appreciate your time and look forward to hearing what folks have to say. Thank you.
Great. And Tamika.
Hi, my name is Tamika Thompson. I am a parent and wife here in Spartanburg, just kind of interested in what's going to happen for the next several years for my family.
Great. Elizabeth.
Hi, I'm Elizabeth Feather. I work at the Upstate South Carolina Alliance, and I am a Spartanburg resident and am really interested in seeing how our community evolves.
Great. Christopher George.
Hi, I'm Christopher George. I'm the City Communications and Marketing Manager. I'm interested to hear everybody's thoughts.
Great. And Annalise. You're muted. All right, let's move on to Jeff.
Hi, Jeff Domeland, and I'm with the National Wellville team. And like Christopher, I'm also very interested to hear what people have to say.
Great. Melissa?
Hey, this is Melissa Early with the Chapman Cultural Center. I'm the Community Impact and Outreach Director there. And we are launching a new cultural plan for Spartanburg soon. And we know that business and economics is a big part of that. So interested in people's ideas.
Great. Marilyn?
Hi, my name is Marilyn. I am the Community Development Vista working with the city. I'm really interested in seeing how the city is going to move forward with their comp plan.
Great. Brittany? You're muted, Brittany.
I'm trying. Hey,
There you are.
this is, you can see my name. I'm Brittany Brandt, and I live here in the city, and I'm just trying to get more involved and super excited to be here and nerding out about this comprehensive plan that is happening.
Great, thanks. And Abigail?
Hi, I'm Abigail Hoffman. I work with In the Berg. It's a daily morning email between One Spartanburg Inc. and Spartanburg Herald Journal.
Great. Kristen? You're muted, Kristen.
She commented in the chat.
Oh, okay. Oh, I missed it. What did the comment say? Can somebody read it for me? I can't find it on my screen.
She said she works in neighborhood services with the city and she lives here with her family, but she has no microphone.
Oh, okay, great. Well, good thing we have the chat feature. Lauren.
Good morning, everyone. Lauren Rogers, lifelong Spartanburg resident. Just looking forward to see how the plan for the Spartanburg evolution over the next 5 to 10 years.
Great. And anybody at CC Woodson? Unmute first. There we go.
No, just Martin Livingston with the city of Spartanburg.
Great. And did I miss anybody? It's funny when people turn their cameras on or off, it moves their picture around on my screen, so I lose track of where I was. It's like one of those sort of matching memory games when I was a kid. I have to remember which squares where. All right. So want to really just jump right in. And, you know, of course, Tripp, feel free to dominate the conversation here. Obviously, you're the subject matter expert, and, you know, I'm pretty free form with this. You know, usually think about things like, what do we need to know about the economy or businesses there in Spartanburg? You know, how are things going? You know, what's missing? What would you like to see more of? You know, or you guys, you know, how you doing economically?
And I want to add one to that too, and this maybe is directed to Chris Story or other staff, is for those who are citizens in the community as well, economic development organizations and how they work are different in every community. It might be helpful for everyone on the call to understand just who the different partners are that are involved, because with Elizabeth here from the Alliance, that's a regional partnership. The city does its own economic development. One Spartanburg does that. Chris, I hate to put you on the spot, but it might be helpful just to give that kind of 1 or 2 minute economic development overview from an organization standpoint.
Sure. Happy to, Trip. We work in, I mean, one of our organizational values is that we try to work in deep partnership with a number of community entities and organizations. We work most closely on economic development with One Spartanburg, which some folks on the call may need to be reminded that One Spartanburg is what used to be called the Chamber of Commerce. The CEO of their economic development efforts is Catherine O'Neill. And another member of the team who may be on the call is Nancy Whitworth, who was a longtime leader, City of Greenville. I spend a good bit of my time on economic development. I work closely with those two folks on economic development strategies. When we are also part of the Upstate Alliance, and they help with marketing the region to folks outside of this community. We do finer grain work than the county can do, but as a function of size and geography. So often Martin Livingston and his team in the community development team of the city are involved. Natasha Pitts leads our minority business development. We run the South Carolina's first entrepreneurial support program for African American entrepreneurs. It's called Amplify. Natasha's the point on that. And we often find ourselves working closely with the county on execution, because any property tax policy questions require by their nature cooperation from county government as well. So those are sort of our key partners. It is, we try to assemble the right team based on the nature of the project. And I know that sounds a little bit cluttered, but it actually works very well when we worked for decades to accumulate the shared understanding about the importance of economic development in the city in terms of our neighborhoods and our downtown. That allows this sort of team ball approach to actually work.
Thanks. I just think that's really helpful for those of you and myself. I mean, I'm just down the road, but a lot of times just knowing that organizational structure and then just to editorialize before I kick it back over to Brian is that partnership approach with One Spartanburg and the city of Spartanburg, and I can speak to this because this is kind of what I do for a living, is the exception rather than the rule, economic development. And it speaks to a strength that Spartanburg has that we don't often see in other places. Furthermore, you brought me in a bit up to speed into a focus on minority entrepreneurship, which is almost non-existent in other communities. So thanks, Chris, for that clarification on the organizational structure.
Yeah, that's great. That's really impressive that it took that long to describe all of the economic development connections and people who are looking out for the economy in Spartanburg. That's awesome. Like Tripp said, that's not normal in a good way. So some of the things we've heard so far are on the screen here. We've heard from people that you know, they think it's going to be difficult to convince a major retailer to come downtown. People talked about capitalizing on some of the adventure sports things you have going on there. People said that there's a need for a large arts venue as a draw for you know, to bring people to the city. They said they're concerned about businesses that are closing. And some businesses that are unkempt looking and aren't really sort of holding up the standards that are needed to make it look like a desirable and thriving place. People talked about doing something with the mall that's been struggling for so long, revitalizing that. People have talked about attracting more small businesses to the city and improving education so that you're able to really tap into, you know, really building your job, your employee base with better education. And we've heard about the food deserts where there's not access to quality and healthy food close to your house that you have access to. So that has some economic instability that goes along with that. And then having the city help support more so the small businesses, and then some key vacant buildings that need to be dealt with, or some sites that are opportunities for new business. Now, you know, obviously retail and things were struggling, you know, with online, competing online. And then certainly once COVID came, you know, that was added, you know, additional challenges as well. I've been encouraged to see how you all have been adapting and, you know, moving outdoors and creating public space and opportunities for outdoor dining and things where you didn't have it before. But, you know, certainly that'll be part of the discussion this week. And we're going to be trying to look at, you know, what are the latest and greatest best practices from around the country, people being innovative and out of the box to create new building types, or, you know, types of, you know, where businesses can fit in and that, you know, sort of meet the needs of what's going on today. So that said, want to go ahead and just start wide open. Anybody wants to jump in, feel free, just unmute yourself and start sharing with us. What do we need to know about the economics or business growth in the city? Hold on, everybody, not all at once.
I'll start. I just want to say how impressed I've been over the last several years at the way that downtown is evolving. I think there's been a lot of progress made, and I, as a resident of Spartanburg, the only thing that I initially am worried about is, oh my gosh, what is this COVID going to do to this progress, and how can we keep the momentum moving forward? Because I know that everybody in small business is probably really concerned right now. So I would hate to lose some of that progress that we've made, because things are really starting to go really well.
Yeah, that's a good one. And we've heard that. It seems like there's a lot of pride in the downtown and in the progress you all made. So that's good. That's good to see for sure. Tamika, you got any thoughts?
I have a thought on the mall thing, but I do want to ask, because I'm not sure. Chris, is the mall in the county? Because I've heard people say that, or is that on the line?
The mall is in the city limits, but on the other side of 26 is outside the city limits. And then actually the mall and Costco are in the city, but the other side of the street to the north of the mall, where Old Navy is outside the city limits. So it's really, the mall proper is in the city, but the surrounding to the west and the north is not.
Understand. Thank you. So one of the suggestions that I've seen come up in other cities, in other areas for the mall, is they have moved businesses like dental practices and other doctor's offices within the mall, because it's usually one of the places that the bus system goes. So that kind of creates like a hub for people to assess the services that they need in one space, and also fills up the gaps of some of the businesses that are closing down. As far as downtown, just speaking for me and my family, it's not a place that I feel comfortable going to. The majority of the venues downtown are, to put it plainly, centered towards middle-class white clientele, and there's just not a lot of things to do outside of, I go to Mezcal quite frequently because it's a comfortable atmosphere for me. I feel invited to be there, but I don't feel that at most businesses, and tend to kind of avoid them in terms of going somewhere. So I would travel to Charlotte or Atlanta to feel more comfortable being out.
Yeah, thank you. We've heard that. And so one of the things that I'd love to really dig into a little bit more is what changes could be made to make you feel more comfortable, or what's missing that, you know, you find in these other places?
There's more of a cultural community fit when you walk into places like Charlotte, and in particular in Atlanta and in New Orleans. There are businesses owned by majority everyone that represents the city. It's not just middle-class white owners. There are lots of people from various communities and parts of the world. There's multiple showings of art that say Black people are welcome here, Hispanic people are welcome here. And it's not something you have to figure out. Like, there's a lot of places I have walked into downtown, you can walk in and you can just tell in the vibe that you are not welcome to be there. And sometimes it's things like the music. Every single artist that a venue might have is a country band or a rock band, and that's all they promote. And they may have been open for several years, but they don't invite other communities to participate in that atmosphere. So it's just a place that you bypass. There's been venues where if you go at a certain time as a Black community member, you get charged to get in. This place is gone now, but it was definitely one of those things that was like, all right, it's not even worth going downtown, parking, getting out, going in. If I know that if I come with my white friends, I got a chance of getting in. But if I come with a group of Black people, it's going to be a problem every single time. There's been a few venues where it's mostly Black clientele, but they are also the most harassed, I would, and that may be a huge word, but they had the most issues with the police continuously. And it's funny to me because some of the things revolve around like loitering, people being in the parking lots and stuff, but you can drive anywhere in Spartanburg and see groups of younger white kids hanging together, showing off their cars and trucks, and they do not get the same response as a group of younger Black kids hanging out in parking lots of businesses and stuff. So that is just kind of some of the discrimination equity things that I'm regularly seeing in the decade or so that I've been here.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that.
And I would like to chime in on that. So to Tamika's point, what I would like to see as we as we talk about diversity and inclusion, and Natasha's and the city have done such a great job with the Amplify program, and then you have the North Side who has the Start Me program. You know, if we think even further past just going through the program, you know, post-program, having those businesses maybe have a dedicated space downtown to set up shop. There's a company, a business that came from the Start Me program. How about them apples? And it's a sweet shop. So having someone like that downtown, I think there have been, you know, having clothing shops have gone through Amplify. So maybe having some of those businesses take stake within downtown, it can begin that conversation and then have that feeling for community, you know, community members like Tamika, you know, to feel comfortable going downtown and not having to go to Atlanta or Charlotte or, you know, other places to feel that inclusivity.
Yeah, yeah, that's great. We were working in a community in Vermont, and they have this amazing college in the city that's very philanthropic. And they one of the things they did was created this a nonprofit, or I can't remember exactly how it worked, but essentially it was an incubator. They had a storefront in the downtown, and so they would help people start businesses, and the business would do basically a pop-up in that store, in that storefront for a certain period of time, and then they move in the next group, and it was just it was pretty cool how that worked, and especially when you've got vacant spaces in downtowns nowadays too. Just to, you just can't imagine how much it helps to fill up those spaces for everyone. And I think that sometimes the owners too will be happy to have things in there, and then they'll have their for rent sign or whatever, so that people can now visualize what a great space it is and how it works for some other business. And the space that I'm referring to is a dedicated space, so it's always there. But you could even work with people, building owners who have vacant storefronts now to find ways to have people do pop-ups. So some of those kind of things might be interesting to explore. Yeah, Abigail.
There was, I can't remember the year and I don't remember the name of the program, but I feel like it was around 2012. There was a kind of entrepreneurship contest that various businesses competed to get a storefront in downtown with, I think it was rent incentives or something like that. And that's how we got a pet boutique downtown. I believe the local hiker was one of those winners, and maybe some restaurants. So it would potentially be nice and a good way to get some of the more diverse businesses coming downtown that feel uncomfortable otherwise opening a storefront, having a sort of community crowdsourcing so they can see there's enthusiasm there, and then also have various incentives so it's not shutting people out of downtown rent before they even look at it, if that makes sense. I feel like what Tamika was saying about how it's daunting to even go certain places in downtown based on the perception. There's potentially that perception of business owners wanting to look for a space downtown as well and feeling uncomfortable even looking for spaces. Even though they might be there with the perception that it's already priced out for them.
Great. Melissa? You need to unmute. Melissa, you know, unmute yourself. I see your hand was up. All right, we'll come back. Oh, there we go. Nope, you're not unmuted. We'll come back to you when you can.
I'm here. Sorry about that. I wanted to bring up a point that ties into what has already been said by the last three people, and that is I've been in Spartanburg for 20 years. I've been so impressed with the initiatives that Abigail just mentioned to encourage locally owned businesses to be able to afford space downtown. One of my concerns, I grew up in Charleston, and when I go back and visit now, I don't recognize downtown. There are almost no local businesses. Everything has been priced out because it's now like a mall. All these national brands that can afford rent are the ones who take it up. So I was concerned when like Starbucks moved in downtown, especially so close to the local coffee shop. And I'm just wondering, are there already sort of guidelines or rules in place for downtown rent that's going to protect local businesses and help us preserve some of the local flavor without, just encouraging a bunch of national brands to move in?
Yeah, that's a great question. Anybody from the city or Trip, anybody have any thoughts about that?
I'll just go ahead, Chris. I think it's a really good point, and being from South Carolina, and knowing Charleston and being in Greenville, I don't think we're going to see that trend happen as much, and we're actually seeing a lot of turnover on King Street right now because of the chains that are there. The rent structure and the way it kind of works with the population base and the income base really points to independent businesses in the core of downtown rather than chain type businesses, and we're actually seeing those kind of suffer really bad even in other markets. So that's just kind of a market perspective, but I'm very cognizant of the concern and want to acknowledge your concern as something that we want to pay attention to as market analysts on this as well. But Chris, you probably have some more insight on it too, being right there on the ground every day.
Yeah, well, the cities can't control rents, of course, directly. What we can control is what incentives we might provide and what assistance we might provide for various projects, and that has been and will continue to be oriented towards things that are likely to create local jobs, local, where the economic benefits stay local. That has been a factor in what we do from an economic development standpoint, but we don't have any levers to control rent transactions. And also, I think part of what we need to understand on that front is that high rents have some adverse consequences. They also have some consequences that make it more likely that rundown, underutilized, or vacant properties become renovated and reutilized, because the primary determinant about whether those investments get made is whether or not people think that it can generate the rents to over time offset the investment. So it's a mixed bag, and it's a complex system that has to work together, and we have to take apart the different levers and have good transparent dialogue about it to understand the trade-offs, I guess, being made. But absolutely, I would expect that local benefit and diverse slate of offerings will continue to be a factor in what we do on the incentive and local investment side with city resources.
Yeah, one of the things that's good, it's encouraging these days is, even though the retail market has gotten more challenging, with everything that's going on these days, I think that the thing you hear over and over and over is the idea of experiential retail, and that people, if I'm gonna take my money and go use it and spend it somewhere. Or even if I'm going to go out and maybe risk my health, being out in public, I want it to be worth my while. And so places that really offer a real experience versus just sort of that chain kind of same old, seem to have a better opportunity, a better chance of surviving in that kind of a climate. And obviously mom and pop shops, 100% offer experience more so than a chain. But on the other hand, if, you literally have a shutdown and they can't have customers, then that's a whole nother ball game. So, yeah, Christopher George.
Yeah, I just wanted to chime in and provide a little clarification for a program that was mentioned before. It was called the Main Street Challenge. That was a program that I think it's 2013. We provided some rent assistance and we held a contest for local business ideas and provided the winners with with some rent assistance for their first year, I believe. And we have a number of those businesses with us still. I would say part of what made that program easy then was that we had an overabundance of, at that time, vacant spots that we could identify. And now, not to say that something like that couldn't be done, but the particular set of circumstances that allowed us to do it, we probably don't exactly have anymore because downtown has progressed so much. But that concept is a good one.
Great. Yeah, thank you for that. I remember there were several years ago, there was a huge tornado in Greensburg, Kansas, maybe, just kind of nearly wiped out the whole city. And as part of their rebuilding effort, the Sun Chips, the potato chip company, actually funded and built a business incubator in the city to help businesses come back. And we worked, there's somewhere not too long ago where there was a city-run business incubator that, the facility was there. They had all the, kind of things that different businesses needed, for restaurants and catering and stuff. There was a co-kitchen facility, and the city really saw it as an economic development tool. There was some cost to the city, obviously, to do it. But the Kansas example I mentioned, they had that corporate sponsorship to help that go. But some of those kind of ideas are really maybe kind of neat to think about and explore.
I think something you just said jogged my memory as well. I don't know how this would go about being done, but something that might be nice to see in Spartanburg is a commercial kitchen that various home businesses could rent out the space to use so that they could have the appropriate guidelines to then sell their I don't know what you would call it. Like, I feel like there's various booths at the farmers market that are limited to where they can sell and to what extent they can package and sell what they're baking or making, because they're not cooking out of a test kitchen, or not test kitchen, but commercial kitchen. So an example of a local company that does use a kitchen and can sell it on a larger scale is those Pickle Ladies. I believe they rent test or commercial kitchen space and use that so that they have the appropriate guidelines to then sell at various retailers, versus some other companies that can sell their stuff personally but can't sell through other retailers. So that might be a nice way to open up additional venues for people to sell their own things as well.
Yeah, that's a good one. And, really, you've also got even a volume issue sometimes. I know, like, my wife makes this incredible granola that, if she could sell as much as she makes, pretty much. And, there are times when we've got a couple of different ovens and she's just like constantly making these batches and batches. And, if she could do in a commercial kitchen, even though she's not even trying to have, some kind of granola business, but to be able to do one big batch and dole that out would, actually add some, quality of life component as well. So.
Once upon a time, we did have a commercial kitchen downtown, and it actually converted to a event space, and then ultimately became, I believe, Hub City Scoops. That's where they started. So if that was pursued again, maybe just talking with the initial owner, and then I think the owners of Two Samuels had taken it on, and then the space just kind of evolved from there. But just kind of seeing what the pros and cons of having the commercial space downtown at the time were, just so those same mistakes aren't made, and then just being able to provide a better service than what was provided, I want to say, like back in 2013, 2014.
Yeah, that's a great point. And, learning lessons from things that worked and things that didn't is really important. The other thing I was we're talking about equity, there's a lot of times when there may be somebody who has an amazing product or an amazing idea. You always hear there's, somebody who, makes the best barbecue, and all their friends are like, oh, you should sell that. And they're like, okay, but I don't know anything about business, and I don't have, the capital, the money to start that business. And so, if you were able to have, thinking about this through that lens of equity, providing the opportunities for people and the training, to start those businesses, to help them, know how to take the thing that they do already that they're not trained to do, that's amazing, and turn that into a business. There's a huge equity component to that as well. Tamika, go ahead.
I was really just had a question. I was curious if there was any part of this plan that was considering reopening or creating spaces for the descendants of the people who lost their businesses and properties on Liberty Street, the Black-owned businesses during urban renewal. If there was any conversation or progress moving towards that direction of making those opportunities present again.
Yeah, I hadn't heard about that. So that's really cool. We'll have to look into that. Is that like an initiative that's been going on, or that's just an idea that you just had?
No, it's not. It's not an initiative. So urban renewal happened and it closed a lot of the restaurants and funeral homes. There was a hotel on the south side. There was numerous businesses that were Black-owned that no longer exist. And so I was just kind of curious if there was going to be any type of plan to kind of reinstate some of those businesses or possibly help new Black-owned businesses get into that space if there's spaces available on Liberty Street, or creating a new Liberty Street.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I mean, one of the things that we need to do, I guess, as a first step even, is to identify the people or the businesses that were, closed down, and see if, I don't know how long ago that was exactly, but, if they're still around, still interested in doing their business, or whatever the case may be.
And I just want to chime in briefly. I really love the thread that you're weaving through the conversation here. That's important. Both when looking to the successes of the past and looking at things like Harvest Park, things like the commercial kitchen that was downtown, the Spark Space, the Tiger River campus. The 2016 county plan does address some really interesting county economic development plan developed by One Spartanburg. Really looks at some cool ideas for entrepreneurship development and kind of an entrepreneurship center downtown. But I love this whole idea of having equity be a key part of that, and worked on a fun project in Pascagoula with 17 repurposed Katrina cottages that became retail spaces. And actually over half the demographics of the business owners exactly represented Pascagoula. It's about a 50-50 African-American white community. And having that, a deliberate, proactive involvement was a really interesting effort. So thank you for bringing that up.
Awesome.
I'd also like to just give a shout out to the fact, we've mentioned in some of the other sessions with all of the colleges and universities nearby. I think there's always been a lack of visibility of where those students are out in the community and spending money. I think it's gotten better over the past few years, but for like generations when I was growing up, you never saw those college students anywhere. And making sure that as you're talking about equity as well as race, to think about the age groups, and is there a place for kids who, can't get into bars, can still meet up and have community? Is there a place for those that can get into bars to have a place to listen to music or do things like that? I think that would be great too.
Yeah, that's actually a great point, because we've worked in a lot of cities and towns that have colleges or universities, but you wouldn't know it. Now, some places we've worked, you couldn't miss it. And so they say, gosh, we wish you didn't know the students were here, because they're just, always, messing stuff up or causing, havoc. They're all in good fun, but it's a disruption to to the neighbors, or the college or university is just gobbling up land adjacent to it so it can grow and grow and grow, and you're losing the kind of the, you know, the character and the heart of the neighborhood. And so it sounds like that right now you guys have all of these college age people around there, but don't really feel like a college town. Is that what I'm hearing you say? You don't see the students? I haven't noticed them when I've been there, but I haven't spent too much time there. How do we get them, you know, so the best of them? How do we, you know, get the most out of them? And a lot of times what we see is similar to what Tamika was saying, actually in the community I mentioned with the cool incubator idea. The college students said, we don't feel like the stores and things in downtown are for us, and we don't feel like people want us in there. But when I talk to people who used to go to the college in that town, they said, oh yeah, we used to, that was like our place, our thing was to go downtown. That was what you did. And it was, you know, quite different. And they had a huge beneficial impact on the economy of their downtown, because they were going down and spending money and eating and just making it more vibrant. And so, you know, is there a way to capitalize on that human resource that you have there with all the college students better than you are right now?
Having gone to school in Spartanburg at USC Upstate, I had an advantage over like my best friend who was from Columbia, and she didn't know about Spartanburg. So at that time, going to Upstate, the closest thing to do was to go to Bowling Springs. So that's where a lot of the college students from Upstate would gravitate towards. But you have Wofford, VCOM, you have the Spartanburg Community Downtown Campus, and now you have the George. So that brings that connectivity to the downtown area. What I would like to see, or somehow expanding the downtown reach as far as we can to connect where the actual Upstate campus is, to bring in those students. Because a lot of the students that go to Upstate aren't necessarily from the area, so you only know from your point of reference, which Bowling Springs seemingly seems like the closest thing to you, because you can take a back road and get to Walmart and places like that. You don't have to travel down the highway of 85 to get into downtown.
Got it. Are there like shuttles or anything that go between the colleges and the downtown?
I believe Upstate has one that goes specifically to the George. I don't know if it's running this year with COVID stuff, but I believe they had one that was going for students going to class or studying in that building. So I actually went to Wofford, and I graduated 4 years ago. And downtown looked very different then. But I was one of the few people that I was friends with that actually went downtown. I didn't have a car for the majority of college, so I would walk downtown and kind of bop around between the 2 or 3 shops that I was able to go to. And at the time, there wasn't too much downtown if you weren't drinking to participate in, aside from boutiques that closed at a certain time. And downtown definitely looks very different right now, but I feel like then and now, the big difficulty with college students is getting the information out that there actually is stuff downtown. But beyond that, I do feel that COVID this year might, if anything, give a slight advantage, in that when I was at Wofford and until probably this year, there was so much going on campus that you had everything you wanted to eat there. You had all the events you wanted to, all your friends are already there. Why would you need to leave campus to do anything? And if anything, a decline in activities going on college campuses might be a benefit, in that they might want to leave campus to do stuff downtown, if there's any positive in all of this pandemic stuff. But when I was walking downtown, I would go down North Church Street, and there are sidewalks the entire way down. It was a little bit harrowing sometimes with the speed of the cars that were traveling in the section closest to Wofford and Memorial Auditorium. But if that experience was just more pedestrian friendly in general, it might encourage students to walk from Wofford, VCOM area. I know the north side and that sort of corridor going into downtown had a lot of transformation lately, especially near the farmers market and the north side commons, which could help with getting students from VCOM to come downtown, but VCOM also doesn't have residents on campus. But Converse specifically, the stretch of sidewalk for Converse students to walk from there down East Main Street to downtown, or if they're going down, was that St. John Street and having to cross over Pine Street to go towards the Chapman Cultural Center and Montgomery Building. I feel like Converse students, there's a bit more difficulty with pedestrian friendly access to downtown there for students to want to come from campus.
That's cool. We were actually working in Mount Pleasant, Michigan, and they have I can't remember what it is. This gigantic university. There's tons of students, and one of the things that they did because their downtown was struggling, it wasn't doing so great, and the city took the initiative to figure out like the main corridor or maybe a couple of corridors that the students would theoretically come down if they were going to walk or bike downtown. And they did this incredible streetscape project, beautiful wide sidewalks, awesome lighting, street trees, all of that. And it was clearly geared like, please come in, they're kind of like pulling you in. And it was, the students loved it because also a lot of other students lived along that corridor. And so as you're walking, even though it's a little bit of a far walk, you're kind of like, oh, hey, how's it going? Everybody's sort of waving at everybody as they walk down the street or bike down the street. And it was one of the most sort of obvious streetscape projects, and made the most sense to do it, and it worked so well. You might look at that. We have safe routes to school. We always talk about for little kids. Now we think about safe routes to downtown for the big kids, for the college kids, and finding ways to do that. As Christopher said, he lives downtown and he sees a good bit of college students, but tends to be late night activities. And so, how do we get people there? I mean, one of the things we find when I talk to college kids is kind of what you said, Abigail, like, why would I go downtown? What's there that I need? I don't need to go to a boutique, or I don't need to go this. And so one of the towns we've been working in recently, where there's a college or university, we actually had to move their bookstore into the downtown. And so it's like, oh yeah, that's why I need to go downtown. The bookstore's there. And then we also had them work with the businesses in downtown so that their swipe cards work in the restaurants on the meal plan with the university. And so there's all kinds of ways that you can really plug in together so that it doesn't just have to be late night hanging out at the bars, which tends to be the times when the other citizens who aren't college students are most frustrated by the students and their behavior. So how do you get them in there as a habit of coming downtown as part of their ritual each day? So, Tamika.
Oh, sorry.
I just wanted to so I know there's been a lot of talk about college students, but there's also a gap with preteens and teenagers who are not feeling like they have a place within the city either. A lot of the times, if you are going to take a child, like my kids are 10 and 11, and just give them that free space to hang with friends, you have to go and you have to pay for that. But there's so many free things for adults to do, but there's not a lot of things for those kids who are looking for a little bit of independence that are free activities available. And we see this particularly showing up in the south side of Spartanburg. There's just not a lot of things to do. If you are an older child, if you're a teenager, you are hanging out on somebody's porch, you are hanging out in somebody's house, pre-COVID, and probably a few now. Or, you're piling your money up just so you can go sit in the parking lot of a place where all your friends are. There's just not a lot of things to do for in an equity sense for everyone. Like Black and Latino kids in particular are being left out of these conversations when it comes to thinking of events and businesses and things that can benefit those communities.
Yeah, that's a great point. And actually kind of goes to something I said in the last meeting about expanding the conception of equity. You know, it's the idea that a child these days is completely dependent upon a grown-up to take them somewhere because of the physical form of their city. You know, they can't get around because it's not safe or their parents aren't comfortable or whatever. And you think about what it used to be like, 50 years ago. Like my parents always laugh when they see me running the kids around the Little League and all this stuff. And they're like, there wasn't even Little League. There was the ballpark in the neighborhood, and you all met your friends there after school, and you played there were two full teams of people, and you play sports and you do whatever. And that, doesn't happen so much anymore. I think maybe the closest thing that we come to that is that a lot of neighborhoods or a lot of cities still have basketball courts and things in their parks. So you can go, play basketball. And so that's, kind of a good thing. I think that's because it's low maintenance. Baseball feels a little bit more maintenance to take care of, but that's a great point. We can't forget about, providing stuff for the younger kids. So maybe, Tamika, if you ask your kids, hey, what would you like if you could make the Spartanburg the way you want it, what kind of place would we make for you to go hang out?
So we've already had some of those conversations in the beginning when this first came out. One of the things that we had a really great experience with, we went to Paris last year, and they had a playground where the kids could go from school, or a parent could bring them, at 3 o'clock and come back and pick them up at 6 o'clock. And there were like 3 or 4 adults that their job was just to watch for safety, but not interfere with the kids hanging out and playing. And so for 2 hours, these kids just had free range of this expansive playground space that was built up enough where teenagers were actually using it. And we also saw this in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and I forget the name of the playground. I actually put it on the forum, but it's a massive playground that actually adults, teenagers, it's even accessible for elderly and disabled to be able to play together. They had these massive castles that had bridges in between them that allowed, it was like, 10 acres maybe of space. And they have community events there. It's a regular go-to for everyone. You can eat there. You could go enjoy the cafe there. There was a mini science center there. So there was playgrounds, there was places to bike, people ran there. And this was all just one community-centered space. So, and I don't think that's something that's above Spartanburg doing. It may need to be on a smaller scale, but I can tell you just, last year, about the point where my kids stopped playing in the playgrounds because they were just like, this is for babies. And we've got some big playgrounds here, but when kids start to feel that age of, I need more, we're not meeting that need right now.
Yeah, that's great.
That could be, I think, sorry, it's important to think about the indoor spaces too, because they could be kids who are into coding. And so maybe there's a place where they can connect and do computer things, computer games. The library has some good space for young adults, but I don't think that, well, of course, COVID kind of, messed up all kinds of scheduling for things like that. But, where it would be great for them to have a place that is friendly to letting kids come in and maybe do board games there. I know my kids are all over, coffee drinks and things like that. They could be paying customers also, but carving out that space for younger people, I agree, is really important as we begin to plan, and making sure that they can get from one place to another. For instance, do they start at the skate park and then walk downtown for ice cream? Or do they, like you said, start at basketball and then find their way downtown for the next, bit of things that they want to do, making sure they can get from place to place easily.
Yeah, have you guys heard about these adventure playgrounds that they do in other countries? I think they're starting to do them some here, where it's basically like a junkyard for kids, and you just let them go break stuff and make stuff and dig, and it's obviously in the U.S. with as much as we like to, sue people for our own, silly accidents and stuff, it's hard to imagine that happening here. But if you Google
but
it.
if you can, if you can have axe throwing, it seems like we could figure out how to have, insurance-wise, a place for kids to hang out.
Yes, absolutely. The more axes, the better. Small axes for the kids, all right? Hatchets. No, but I think that, there's a lot of science that actually backs it up now. And can you imagine, Tamika, to your point, because my kid, I've got a 13-year-old, a 10-year-old, and a 4-year-old. And so I've got the full range. And, the 13-year-old's kind of done with the slides a little bit. She'll do it because she likes to hang out with her siblings. But can you imagine if I was like, hey, you want to go over there and knock stuff down and break stuff or do whatever? And so I think that looking at some creative solutions, there's a less extreme example of that. There's a resort community called Alice Beach, and they've got this really cool playground, and it's essentially like there's like big berms and things in the berm, like you climb up the berm and then the slide comes out of that and there's a spiral down, and it's just sort of landforms. But in addition to being really interesting and fun for the kids, it's also really cool looking. It actually, it looks like something you wouldn't mind having out featured as something in the city. So there's some cool things we can look at. That's a great point, Tamika. Thanks for bringing that up.
I was just hoping that we can, if we're looking at all these things, if they could maybe consider having some free days or some extremely low cost days, because a lot of these things, the things that we do have available in Spartanburg, are not financially attainable to families who just either don't have the money, don't have the resources to pay for a sitter to go with their kids so they can continue their work, or they just have a lot of kids and paying, like Big Air is like $10 a head. And if you've got 4 kids, you're not going. You're going to have to wait, until you're invited to a birthday party and hope that it's paid for, kind of thing. The skate park's free, but you got to have a board. You got to have protection and affordability to make it safe. And everybody's family doesn't have that. And I think some of the considerations that come up in the city is people forget that everybody doesn't have the income to support these things that they would love to be able to do, but it's not realistic.
Yeah. Good point.
Jumping on that with the skate park too. So the skate park and then also the new bike park on the rail trail on both ends of that is nice because it's a connected outdoor amenity that's free for people to participate in. But like Tamika was saying, if people don't have either a bike or a skateboard, or they're not interested, they might not even be interested in like sports type free activities. Potentially more, I guess, family friendly or even teen friendly businesses along the rail trail. I know there's a stretch at the rail yard where there's sort of an outdoor amphitheater, and then the Panthers play 60. And there used to be an ice cream business that was connected to a warehouse building that was kind of like an overstock store that closed, and they closed the ice cream thing and everything. But potentially more businesses along that stretch that were like smaller purchases like ice cream or just like more outdoor activity friendly, to have that be more of a gathering space than if somebody was just wanting to exercise or ride a bike. And then also with the skate park and the bike park, if there was potential, I guess it would be a PALS park, Partners for Active Living thing that they would potentially have to do. But if there was sort of a bike share for specifically use at the venues. I know there's the B-cycle rentals for actually riding on the rail trail if somebody wanted to ride a bike, but if there was maybe like a shared, like you sign your name and check out a skateboard or a bike to participate with the bike park. So it was more friendly to people who don't already have a skateboard or a helmet or stuff like that.
Great. Trip, any other thoughts we want to ask people about before we hop off?
I did share a little bit on the data from the 2018 downtown study and then we'll be freshening up some numbers too. But all I want to do is thank you all. What y'all are able to do is connect some really important dots. For me, as the guy who's running the numbers, on this, and so thank you so much for this input, because it'll help as we start crafting recommendations and dovetailing recommendations in with prior efforts that have already been done, so that we're not leaving things on the cutting room floor. We're kind of picking things up and saying, oh, well, this was a recommendation from 2016, but we heard this, let's add to it or refine it, or this was done in 2013, what do we bring back, that makes sense. So thanks so much for your input.
Great. All right. Well, if unless anybody has anything else they want to throw out real quick, we'll go ahead and wrap it up. And we've got the next meeting coming up at 1 o'clock.
2 o'clock.
My
2 o'clock
time.
Eastern.
1 o'clock Central.
Right.
And we're going to
Brian's on
talk
the wrong
about
time zone.
conservation, growth, and development at that meeting. So where we grow, how much we grow, what growth is like, what development is like, those kind of things. So feel free to come and participate, and spread the word as well. Let other people know we're doing this. It's super important.
Brian, Martin's also got the giveaway.
Oh yeah, we got a giveaway. Yep.
Are you ready?
Yes.
Elizabeth Feather, first winner.
Can I win again?
Yes. Every time you attend, you and are entered into a drawing. And Abigail Hoffman.
There we go, Abigail. All right.
So Elizabeth Feather and Abigail Hoffman.
Thanks, everybody. That's so fun. So what did they win, Martin?
$25 QT gift card.
Awesome.
Great.
All
Can
right.
we also real quick take a group photo? We didn't take one in our last meeting. And
Oh, yeah.
it's nice to have a photo. If there's anybody who doesn't have their camera on who is willing to, go for it. And I'm just gonna, as soon as everybody's on, oh, Natalia, you be careful. All right, everybody smile. I'm gonna clip it right now. Oh, hang on. Perfect.
Awesome. Thank you so much, everybody. Y'all have a good afternoon. We'll hopefully see you in just a little bit.